Okay, so I think we'll start with just a quick round of introductions. So I'll just have you all say who you are, who you work with, and why digital inclusion is important to the populations you serve. So I'll start. I'm Clara McCool. I work with the Greater Portland Council of Governments as the Regional Broadband Coordinator. And we serve sort of a number of towns in the Greater Portland region. And digital inclusion, I've seen be an important factor in education, healthcare, connecting with others, especially civic action. So working for a regional planning organization, it's really great to see people be able to join public meetings from home. So I think that's been a big part of how I've seen, the digital landscape impact the people we serve. And I'm going to pass it over to Maggie Drummond Ball to do a quick introduction.
Oh, thanks, Clara. Morning, everyone. I'll just share in advance that I and my whole family have COVID, so my voice is not great. I am joining you from Rockland today. I'm the Strategic Partnership Director for Maine Connectivity Authority. Really excited to see this group coming together. And for me, digital inclusion has been really personal for lots of reasons, but one reason I'll share today is that my parents retired 2 years ago in 2020, and they both have had health complications, and throughout COVID had a lot of risk for isolation. And it's been such a comfort to our family to be able to connect with them virtually and for them to access telehealth and telemonitoring services from their rural small town community in Maine has been amazing. So they're not as well connected as, of course, we'd like them to be, but the kind of benefits that our family has had from that has been amazing. And I will pass it to Deborah Bear Rogers, who's next to me on the screen.
Hi, everyone. Again, Deborah Bear Rogers. I work at Disability Rights Maine, and I work in two specific programs related to disability rights. I work the Maine Relay, which is telecommunications relay services, captions on phones, captions on apps. And I also work the telecommunications equipment program. I'm glad I don't get paid by the letter, right? So, so TRS and TEP. And I'm also a person who wears hearing aids and has hearing loss. So there's no captions on this meeting today. So I just have a small request. Just make sure when you're speaking that obviously we're facing the screen, but I might be raising my hand going, what was that word? I missed that word. Just appreciate that. And yeah, let's see. And why digital equity? So I work with consumers that use different types of landlines and cell phones, and captions require internet. So as we've worked with some consumers that are using analog-based devices, analog is being sunsetted out as digital's coming in more and more. We have a lot of consumers that are kind of in the middle, and we want to make sure they're receiving the same access that everybody else does. And then at Disability Rights Maine, we have an even bigger group of people that don't have equal access currently to internet. And so we want to make sure their voices are heard as well. So that's my short elevator speech. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Sheila.
Hi, I'm Sheila Myhaver. I'm a teacher with Gray New Gloucester Adult Education. A lot of my students will work remotely from home. And so digital inclusion is important for us in that way to make sure everybody has access to the internet so that they can do the work from home, because they don't always have rides. They don't always have vehicles to get to our location. So being able to work towards their credential at home is a big thing for us. That's all I got. And I will pass it to Susan Corbett.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Corbett. I'm the Executive Director of the National Digital Equity Center, and I'll be your consultant as you all create your own regional digital equity plan. So we're going to spend a lot of time together over the next month or two. I founded the National Digital Equity Center in 2018 to help close the digital divide here in Maine. And we offer free digital skills classes to all Maine residents. We manage affordable device programs, and we work with community members to hold classes at their location, assist people in signing up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. And so I'm excited to kick off this meeting with you this morning and see what we can develop over the next few months. So thank you so much. And I will pass it to Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry Holt. I live in Sebago. Probably the largest population I represent is rural. And within our rural community, we have a vast difference between levels of service. I have excellent service, and there are other people who have almost no service or no service at all. And because of my age, I represent the older population in terms of transportation issues and telecommunications and telemedicine. I have an interest in that area. And finally, 35 years ago, I made a proposal to the cable companies and the phone companies in the area to start a network to do a similar kind of thing that we're doing now. And I was told it was brilliant, but not needed. And I ate a lot of humble pie on that, but we're back at it. And it's really exciting for me to finally see that coming together. That's it. And I'll pass it on to, who is that? Nathan?
Hello, everybody. You know, sometimes humble pie can taste the best there, Jerry. And Nathan Davis with Gateway Community Services, Director of Programs. We focus mostly on immigrant, refugee, and asylee populations, and more generally BIPOC populations as well. And first time kind of engaging in a coalition like this, but happy to be here. I think I hit all the questions there, and I will pass it to Rob.
Thanks, Nathan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Klaber. I'm the manager of the Greater Portland Career Center as well as the Springvale Career Center and for the state of Maine Department of Labor. And we operate what we call one-stop centers. And so in terms of accessibility, we're always looking into having a voice at the table there to see what we can do to best serve our customers that way. And as well, historically speaking, many of our customers do come into the center because they are challenged by technology and they need some guidance and support around that. And then finally, this is of interest to me because there is a new funding stream and the development is ongoing for a virtual career center to be established in the state of Maine and to have people have accessibility to those services and through those means. All of our customers are both in the rural spaces as well as in the urban spaces. So very interested to see what we can do to increase connectivity to all of our customer base. Thank you. And I will pass it along to, let's see, Maggie.
I think Maggie went.
Did she go? Oh yeah, she was first. Sorry, on my list. I didn't see this. We'll go to Derek. Sorry.
Sorry, Rob. What name did you say?
Derek.
Derek. Perfect.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here. My name is Derek Morin. I'm the contact center manager for the Opportunity Alliance and 211 Maine. The Opportunity Alliance is the community action program in Cumberland County, serving some of York as well in some of the programs. And at 211, we cover the entire state. We receive hundreds of calls a day from help seekers looking for a lot of basic needs, low, no, and fixed income demographics. So, digital equity and inclusion is a big part of some of the emerging and multiple needs that we are trying to serve on a daily basis, and having a resource to point people to, and getting them connected so they can help self-advocate and navigate some of the online services that are available, and do sort of, personal research, and just having that connectivity is just so important. I think it would be a great opportunity for us to be able to distribute any types of programs that come out of this coalition to a lot of the help seekers that we talk to every single day. So I appreciate being here, and I'll pass it off to Teresa Boynton.
Thank you. I'm Teresa Boynton. I'm the program coordinator at Gray New Gloucester Adult Education. Digital literacy is a big push with adult educators. We want to make sure that our students, when they're heading off into the college or the work world, have those basic digital literacy skills to assist them. We also offer community classes. We did our own, Google Suite class, or basic Word or Excel classes. And then we partnered with National Digital Equity Center, and we started offering their classes in person. And Shayla Myhaver, who's also on here, she's my facilitator of those classes. So we try to pick the classes we think that are a wide range and would be of service to our community, and offer those classes in person. And if not, then try to find them for them, or offer them an option to come in and take the class online in our computer lab. We also loan devices to our academic students so that they are not without, in order to help achieve their high set, or if they're working in a workforce program. Medical assisting is one we use we use an online program, so we'll loan devices if students need them, and then they return them to us. We don't have loaner devices for the community at large. Not sure that this is something we're looking to do, but we definitely would like to help people find devices, find connectivity if that's something that they need. And I will pass it to Amy Stone.
Hi, thank you, Teresa. I'm Amy Stone. I'm the library director at the Bridgeton Public Library. And so we have been offering technology classes for years, one-on-one assistance as well as group trainings. We are currently in National Digital Equity Center partner, and have just started offering those classes. And we are getting groups of people together to get technology training. In terms of digital inclusion, I see it as a really critical component to rural equity, really, in making sure that people, particularly with barriers, have access to online services like medicine and employment opportunities, which is more than just providing a physical broadband connection. It also requires devices that are updated, and training on how to use them. And so I will just give you an anecdotal story of someone who has been coming in for one-on-one training. She is in her late 80s, and she needed to update her insulin pump, which required a download. She had a laptop from 2000 that had not been updated, and a smartphone from 2007. So neither of these devices were appropriate or adequate for actually completing the insulin pump
update. And so we had to use a wide variety of our resources in order to help this person. And we are still working on it, but we're almost there. And this is just one person who was very intelligent and did have an internet connection, but did not have the devices at home. So it's very complicated. And so we need to make sure that the plan has all of those pieces in place. So it's not just about the infrastructure, it's also about the use. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to pass it on. So I will pass this along to Belinda.
Thank you, Amy. And I'm happy to follow Amy because she just said it all so well. I can kind of just say, that's why. I'm at GPCOG. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships. I will kind of be helping Clara in the background with all of this work, just to support her as many of us at GPCOG will be. And yes, as a regional planning agency and a metropolitan planning organization, we do seek to help all of our member communities be sustainable and equitable. And obviously the digital realm is becoming a way that we conduct so much of our business and a place where we access so many of our opportunities. So that is why we are excited about this work. And I'm excited to make all of these connections this morning. I will pass this off to Jane.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Winarda. I work as a main SNAP Ed nutrition educator at Portland Public Health. So there are a couple of my colleagues also in this room. We are, oh yes, Haley, who's waving, and Amanda as well, who's my director. And we are looking to see, hopefully, kind of also on top of what everyone was saying, like how do we expand access to resources, like practicality of using a lot of the services that we have within the city, and also just helping folks navigate within the city to resources. So myself, I'm hoping to also kind of have a project related to digital equity and helping folks access charitable foods more easily. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to do for my project, but I'm going to pass the mic to Amanda to also talk about some other ideas that we might have within Portland Public Health for digital equity.
Thanks, Jane. I'm Amanda Hutchins. I'm the HEAL, so Healthy Eating Active Living Program Coordinator at Portland Public Health for the City of Portland. But a lot of the work we're doing right now is really looking at equity, health equity. So I think for us within the public health division, looking at like access to care, like Jane had mentioned, access to food, and really bringing in kind of breaking down those barriers within kind of like digital literacy with just access to basic needs. And I might as well pass to Haley to kind of round out our team.
I love our team, so I'm happy to join. Thank you so much for including me on this. And my name is Haley Privat. I'm the Research and Evaluation Program Coordinator at Portland Public Health. And to kind of go off of what Jane and Amanda were saying, we're doing a lot of work in the back end of our website, our social media, our communications, to make sure that those are accessible. And so we're looking at the tools and things that we use to get our messages out there and to communicate with our residents, and we're seeing gaps there. And so we want to make sure that we have the skills and the technical capacity, and also understand the landscape of what digital equity or inequity looks like around Portland and the greater Portland area and Cumberland County as a whole, as many of our programs often straddle the line between urban and rural programming and initiatives. And so getting the lay of the land of digital equity and inclusion, and how we can be better stewards of some of those tools and communication practices is really kind of where we're heading. And trying to strengthen our skills there. So happy to be a part of this group, and thanks for having me. Oh, path to Kathleen, I think. Oh, maybe not. Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Hi, I am the director of Harrison Village Library. And I'm here basically because we serve a lot of the sort of targeted populations that I was reading about in the Digital Equity and Inclusion Asset Inventory. We're rural, we serve a lot of elderly people, a lot of people below the poverty line, and also we have a huge connectivity problem in Harrison. There's a lot of pockets of people that can't get service. So just in the very beginning stages of investigating what we can do to help. So I am here to learn. Sorry, I did it too. Tegan, have you already gone?
I haven't. Hi, everyone. I'm Tegan, and I am the communication specialist here at the Greater Portland Council of Governments. So I'm working directly with Clara on this project, and at this meeting, I'm taking notes. But for the rest of the project, I'll really be helping with the outreach and making sure that we are gathering public input from the targeted communities, and we are communicating these services to people. So I will pass it on to who hasn't gone. Rick?
Hi, I'm Rick Kelly. I am the online student success coach at Portland Adult Ed. I just started, so I won't have too much to offer, but I am happy to be here. But the biggest part of my job is just helping our students get through the HISA stuff and building some online resources. And that includes growing our digital literacy program, because here at Portland Adult Ed, we have students from all over the world, which is great. But unfortunately, those also come with a unique set of challenges. And so we're trying to build a new curriculum sort of from the ground up that goes all the way from how do you send a text all the way through to hopefully, how to send out your resume and stuff like that. So thanks again for having me. And I don't know, I missed the beginning. Oh, and also I might have to cut out here and there because I'm filling in for someone else today, so I apologize. Is there anyone else who hasn't gone?
I think it's just Debbie is the only one we have left. Yeah.
Hi, I'm also sick, so apologize. I work for the Southern Maine Agency on Aging. I'm our community programs coordinator. This is crucial to our work. I mean, we work with mostly adults who are over 60 or adults with disabilities. We do cover York and Cumberland County, but we have lots of like rural pockets where it's harder for older adults, maybe limited mobility or disabilities. So like being able to connect to Zoom and Teams to experience some of our programming. And also we have a huge initiative with working with diversity, equity, and inclusion, just people who are living in poverty and like all kinds of challenges. And so just the ability to be able to connect to the internet and have like resources with like quality technical support is crucial to helping the people that we serve. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, everyone. It's sort of great to have like a sort of setting the scene of like why we're all here and why this work is really important. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Maggie, and she's going to give a presentation talking a little bit about Maine's digital inclusion planning effort and sort of where this funding is coming from. Thanks, Maggie.
Yes, no problem. Thanks. Sorry, I'm trying to get this slideshow so that you all can actually see it. This is a really great group. I'm so glad I had a chance to join this meeting, and I'll just apologize in advance that I may have to jump off after I do this part, but I know you're in good hands with Clara and Susan. So big picture, just want to give you a sense of kind of why this is all happening, why Clara's bringing you together across your region to think about this. The Maine Connectivity Authority is the state's broadband office. We were established at the end of 2021. as a quasi-governmental entity to be sort of flexible and nimble and proactive partner, really to take advantage of the moment that we're in. And the stage was set with the bipartisan infrastructure law that created 2 funding streams, specifically for broadband infrastructure and for digital equity and inclusion work. So that's what's outlined here on this slide. Both of these funding streams, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, which is primarily supporting the infrastructure investments, and the Digital Equity Planning, or the Digital Equity Act, supporting the digital equity work. Both of these programs have significant resources available to the state of Maine. They have a planning phase and an implementation phase. So where we are at this moment in time is that MCA has drawn down an initial planning fund for each of these sources, and we will be creating a combined broadband action plan for the state of Maine. So rather than going through 2 separate planning processes in order to draw down these implementation funds, we decided to combine our infrastructure plan and our digital equity plan together. We think that digital equity has to be embedded in our infrastructure planning, but we also didn't want to exhaust Maine communities and Maine people and Maine stakeholders by having 2 separate rounds of planning and doing a survey about digital inclusion and then doing a survey about access with your infrastructure. So it's a combined planning process. What this means is that when we complete our broadband action plan at the end of July and submit it to the federal government, we will then have the opportunity to draw down significant implementation funding for our broadband deployment investments around the state and our digital equity and inclusion programming investments. Well, I'll stop right there. We'll talk a little bit more about the timeline on this slide. The timeline is pretty short and pretty intense. So throughout this month, next month, throughout April, we will be doing engagement with people all over the state of Maine in a number of different ways. Community meetings, surveys, focus groups, interviews. We'll have a voicemail box for feedback. There will be both in-person and online opportunities to provide feedback. We'll be doing outreach through existing events, basically finding every avenue we can to get input into the broadband plan for Maine. We plan to have a draft of our broadband action plan in the month of May and release that draft for public comment throughout the month of June. And then in July, we'll take everything that we've heard throughout that public comment period, integrate that feedback into the plan, and submit it by the end of the month, or July 31st. So that tight timeline for us means also a pretty tight timeline for all of our stakeholders. This is sort of the structure that we're using. We, as Clara mentioned, Greater Portland Council of Governments is one of our regional and tribal broadband partners that you see here. There are 13 partners representing every region of the state, as well as a partner who is supporting the tribal nations. We have an interagency broadband working group, which represents all of the state agency partners we're coordinating with in this plan. We have a workforce advisory committee that includes our industry partners, educational partners, and workforce development partners, because workforce is a strong component of the broadband deployment programming, and we have the opportunity to fund workforce development programs through that funding. We have a capital markets task force, which will be helping us think through other funding sources in addition to the federal funding that's coming through the Infrastructure Act. We know that even though this is significant and generational investment in our infrastructure and digital equity, it's not likely to fund everything that we may need to do to get everyone connected in Maine. So we're actively looking at, with our partners, at other opportunities to provide funding for this work. We have a digital equity and inclusion task force. There's about 40 members And these are partners who represent or serve all of the covered populations that are outlined in the Digital Equity Act. And I'm going to go through those in detail on the next slide, although I think Clara has probably included that in her information out to all of you. And then we'll also be working directly with tribal leadership and the tribal nations through a more formal consultation process to ensure that the plan for the state of Maine includes the priorities and needs of the tribal nations as well. So each of those stakeholder groups will have participants, 1 or 2 participants on a steering committee that will work with the MCA staff and board to essentially review and finalize that broadband action plan before it is submitted at the end of July. So there's a lot of moving parts and lots of partners engaged at all levels here. These are the covered populations. The federal government was pretty clear and specific when they passed the Digital Equity Act. They said essentially, we aren't going to leave it up to the states to prioritize the people who are most impacted by the digital divide. We're actually going to tell the states who's most impacted and ask them to make sure they address all those populations in their plan. So thus the emphasis on engaging with partners and with folks who have lived experience to ensure that our plan does reflect the needs and barriers and opportunities for each of these communities. And you'll notice most of the regional coalition partners are being gathered by all the regional partners, really looking for partners that work with and represent these covered populations in particular. What do we get at the end of this? We'll have a roadmap for the state of Maine that will outline how we will make our broadband infrastructure and digital equity investments over the course of the next 5 years, once we've submitted the plan. And that plan will be the essence of our implementation funding requests that we then submit to the federal government. And the ways that you can help, first things first, just understanding the timeline in the process and where we are and how all the partners are working together in this process, assisting in the development of a digital inclusion plan for your region, and really letting others know that you interact with in your personal lives, in your work lives, in all the other places where you show up in community, sharing out opportunities for folks to be engaged in the development of this plan. That's one of the most important ways that you can help. And I'll just say, we made the decision to create our digital equity plan for the state of Maine, and this will really be the first time we have a digital equity plan for the whole state. We made the decision to work with our regional partners for a couple of reasons. One, we think that we need to get really close to the people and communities that are most impacted by the digital divide. So at the regional scale, we felt that we would have community partners who work closely with those folks who may need support and programming in order to be better connected. But we also wanted to get to scale when it comes to assets. So if you think about a small rural community that maybe doesn't have a public library, but at the regional scale, we have a number of assets and resources that community could draw upon. So that's why we decided to partner with our regional and tribal partners to create a state plan that is made up of those regional plans that you all will be developing. So I'm going to just stop right there, and I am happy to answer questions about any of that kind of big picture. And I also don't want to derail you, so I'm happy to answer questions in the chat as long as I'm here as well. Haley.
Hi, Maggie. Thanks so much for the presentation. I really appreciated it. And I, as a little bit of a data nerd, I'm kind of curious more about those covered populations, and specifically, will this data be available for us to kind of get a sense of, what the landscape is looking like here in Cumberland County or Greater Portland? And is that data possibly available to partners here in some type of kind of, I love the GP Cog data library. I scream that from like rooftops wherever I can for people to check out. And so if this gets added in some shape or form to that data library, that would be pretty amazing.
Yes, definitely. We all share your love of data, and we're working hard to get more of it. I think one thing I neglected to mention is important as we think about the digital equity plan for Maine. The NTIA estimates that 89% of our population here in Maine is one or more of those covered populations. So most people who live in Maine are considered a priority population to be touched by our digital equity plan. We have hired a research partner, HR&A Advisors. They've created a data sort of snapshot, a digital equity snapshot of each of the regions. And we will be sharing those snapshots with the regional partners in our regular monthly meeting tomorrow morning. So that they can explain what that analysis is and how the regional partners can use it. So I'm sure Clara will then be sharing that with all of you after that meeting tomorrow. In addition, all of the data that we gather through the surveys, the focus groups, interviews, community meetings, all of that is going to be available to the partners as we collect it and analyze it with the support of HR&A Advisors over the next few months. And then I think as we think about, collectively, a little bit further down the road, when we think about what that digital equity plan looks like, we need to build in those benchmarks for when we update that data, what sort of regular cycle are we on to understand our digital equity, the state of digital equity in Maine as we continue to do this work. The other piece of data that we're working on that the regional partners will see again tomorrow is you've seen that initial draft of the digital equity asset inventory. We know that that's not complete. That's sort of the first landscape scan. We're creating a space on our website where each of these regional coalitions around the state, as you identify additional resources and assets, you will be able to add those in through a form on our website. And then over time, we hope for that.
Scooby-Doo. Can you get some Scooby-Doo?
Over time, we hope for that asset inventory to be represented visually as well. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Maggie.
That's tough competition.
It is tough to follow up on.
Thoroughly answered my question while also answering questions about Scooby-Doo. So Maggie, amazing. Thank you.
Very, very complete answer. Yeah, so as Maggie said, we're going to be getting that data tomorrow and would love to share that out with all of the partners. And then we're going to figure out a way to get that up on the Greater Portland Council of Governments website so it's available to sort of everyone in our region. So if there aren't any more questions, and also feel free to put them in the chat, even if Maggie has to drop off, I can capture any questions people have and follow up with some answers. But in the interest of time, I think we're going to shift to hear a little bit from Susan Corbett on defining digital equity and creating a plan. But before we do that, we have someone who just joined, Bob Zager. He's with Greater Portland Health. And Bob, if you could just do a quick introduction, who you are and why digital inclusion is important to the populations you serve. And then we'll move to Susan.
Sorry that I had a conflict for the first portion of the meeting, but my name is Bob Zager. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Greater Portland Health. We're a community health clinic serving the Portland area. And I also oversee IT in my role. And the relevance here is that our patient population, many are homeless, many are lower income and not able to well afford internet. Many are also newer to the country and might not be familiar with what IT services are available. And that's important for particularly in the COVID era of accessing telehealth, which is a lot more prevalent way to get healthcare now, as well as doing some items of convenience in healthcare, scheduling an appointment, submitting or receiving documents, things that patients can do via our patient portal, but a lot of our patients have barriers to do.
Thanks, Bob. And I'm going to pass it over to Susan.
Okay, well, good morning again. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. And everybody can see that? Yes. Okay. So, we're going to create together, we're going to create a digital equity plan for your region. And we're going to do it it may sound a little overwhelming about everything we have to do and the timeline we have to meet, but we're going to do it as in small bites so that we can get to where we need to get to by the end of April. So what are we even talking about, right? So what is digital equity? And so the official definition is digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. During the pandemic, we saw how deep the digital divide was. Students that didn't have a broadband connection because it wasn't available, or a family couldn't afford it, or they didn't have a device to connect to their remote school. We saw remote workers who were suddenly remote workers. Same issue. Maybe they had an internet connection, or they couldn't get an internet connection, or family couldn't afford it, or they didn't have a device in order to participate as a remote worker. And then there was the older adults who were suddenly battling a shelter-in-place order after battling isolation and loneliness anyway. And so we had older adults that weren't able to connect to family and friends, to healthcare providers through telehealth visits, who may or may not have a broadband connection. Maybe they couldn't afford it. Maybe they didn't have a device, and maybe they needed some digital skills. And so we saw here in Maine all of those issues that were going on around us. We know that digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. We achieve digital equity by promoting digital inclusion. And digital inclusion includes affordable broadband, affordable equipment, digital skills training, public computer access, and technical support. And so as we work together to create the plan, we're going to try to figure out what are the barriers to those digital inclusion components. And then how are we going to fix it? What's the recommendations for the people that you're serving that can help close the digital divide? And then what kind of budget do we need to put together so that you can execute this plan? So think about how this is all going to roll out. We're going to have plans that are going to come together across the state from the 13 regional broadband partners. The state is going to mash up those plans. They're going to bring in some of the work that's going on the state level with several industry partners. They're going to submit an application. They're going to submit the plan to NTIA in July after public comment in June. Then once NTIA approves it, the state is going to be able to apply for capacity building grants. Those are the funds to actually execute these plans on a state level and a regional level. So there is a reward at the end of all the work we're going to do together. Covered population, that is, you're going to hear this over and over again. The Digital Equity Act specifically addresses the covered population. And so we're going to look for recommendations for each of these categories. The state has statewide working groups where they're looking at on a statewide level, because there may not be resources on a local level that we can be able to tap into on a state level. We'll hear about that as our working groups are pulling together plans across the state. Our next steps, we're going to have, the meeting dates, we're going to form subcommittees, there's a survey coming out, Maggie mentioned that, through HRNA, the consultant, the digital asset inventory. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Your region's going to put together a vision statement. We're going to figure out the timeline, community meetings, budgets, and final report. So we have a lot of work to do, but I am confident we're going to get it done. Happy to take any questions from you.
Great. I don't know if we have any questions right now, but again, similarly to Maggie's presentation, we will send this out in follow-up. And if people do have remaining questions, feel free to direct those to me and I can either answer myself or talk with Susan and get you an answer. So next, and we are sort of running up on time. If people are available to stay a little after 12, that would be great. But again, this is recorded and will be sent out. So if people do have to jump at noon, feel free to do so. So we're going to talk a little bit briefly about the digital asset inventory. So I sent this to everyone in one of my earlier emails. Maggie mentioned it in her presentation. This was essentially an effort by the state to try to figure out what digital inclusion work is already being done. So what programs exist to loan devices out, help people afford to subscribe, digital literacy classes would be involved in that. So one of the things that the coalition will be sort of key in helping with is looking at that asset inventory, looking at what is listed for Cumberland County and seeing what are the gaps, what programs exist that aren't reflected in that plan. So one thing that I'm going to ask you all to help out with before the next meeting, I've created a spreadsheet that I will share and follow up to this, which sort of outlines a way to input a program. So say you know of a device lending program that either is at your organization or at a partner organization that you work with. It'll just ask you some questions about that program so that we can then reflect that in the report that the state created. And also just want to note, Susan put her email in the chat, so anyone can feel free to email her questions. So does anyone have, I know I sent that out. I know people might not have had a chance to look at it, but just want to see if anyone has any questions about that process and the digital asset inventory in general. Or if Susan has anything to add. She was sort of on the team in creating that.
Yeah. So what eventually is going to happen is that asset inventory will be available online. It will be an interactive where you can type in, you want to see all the digital inclusion assets in Cumberland County, or you might want to see who's offering devices in Cumberland County. And that as we start to bring more people on board and providing these services, especially as we execute the plan, those assets will go up onto the state website. So it'll be a living document. They'll be continually adding to the assets that are available throughout the state.
Will there be any kind of recommendations in terms of hardware? I remember early on when the internet came on board and people were running around fixing up old computers very enthusiastically and then giving them out only to find out that they really didn't work. And I'm looking for like, is there any guidelines to help people get the right equipment?
We have a program at the National Digital Equity Center, and you're going to see more across the state. It's the Digital Navigator program. And a digital navigator is someone who helps someone figure out what they need for a device, help them apply for the Affordable Connectivity Program and their discounted broadband, help them figure out what they need for digital skills. So I would imagine we're going to see more of those boots on the ground outreach workers helping individuals so that you don't have to figure this out on your own. You'll have some resources.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And so the last item on the agenda before we close and talk a little bit about next steps, we wanted to highlight a resource for you all. I've been able to meet with most of you one-on-one and have mentioned this, but we want to talk a little bit about the Affordable Connectivity Program. So this is an internet subsidy available to low-income households for $30 a month off your internet. And Susan has put together sort of a quick presentation talking a little bit more about the program. And she's going to share that now. Again, we'll share the presentation, share this recording, so that this can be something that if your organization in the past sort of didn't know about it, you can share this with other people that you work with. So I'll pass it over to Susan one more time.
All right, great. So the FCC initiated a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program a little over a year ago. Prior to that, it was called the Emergency Broadband Benefit. And the benefit provides a discount of about $30 per month for folks that meet 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. So translated, that means a family of four with a family median income of $55,000 is eligible for that discount. If you live on tribal lands, your discount is $75 per month. The FCC, so you have to apply, you have to go online, so you need a broadband connection, you need equipment to do that, you need to know what a PDF is, and so the National Digital Equity Center has classes to help people learn how to apply for the benefit. The FCC then came out with a program called the Outreach Grant Program. So NDC has applied for that program. And what it will do, it will help facilitate the promotion of the Affordable Connectivity Program across the country. The grant application that we submitted was it will put a digital navigator, an outreach worker in each of the regional and tribal broadband partners across the state to help people, to help organizations host events, as well as to help people sign up for that benefit. We should be hearing from that sometime in March. Again, the FCC application focused on the covered population. So you're seeing the theme come across from grant program to grant program across the country. NDC submitted a grant for the outreach program, and 3 other organizations here in Maine as well applied for full-time digital navigators in their region. So if all are funded, all these programs, all the grant applicants will work together so we can provide as much service as we can across the state. The NDEC's application is for 13 digital navigators, 1 for each region, a full-time digital navigator to focus on the covered population, a stipend for each of the regional broadband partners to host 4 events a year, stipends for volunteers to work at those events to help people sign up, and then some funding for a consultant to help with those covered populations. So hopefully we'll hear in March. In the meantime, NDC hosts classes for families that want to apply for the benefit. We also hold classes for organizations that are that meet with some of our more vulnerable population, and we're happy to hold classes for you and your staff. So if you're interested in doing that, just reach out to me. I put my email in the chat, or ask Clara for it, and we're happy to help the people that you're serving and provide this benefit. Right now, we don't have an end date for this program, so we're just going to continue forward and get as many people as we can in Maine. We have about 62,000 families that have signed up. There's probably about 140,000 that are eligible. The state is working with Education Superhighway, and Education Superhighway is developing an app specifically for Maine residents that they can apply for that benefit right from a cell phone. So more to come on that as we progress. So thanks, Clara.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, so this is just an example of, bringing you all into this coalition. You are all going to give us so much input into this plan and help make it as great as it can be. And so we want to make sure that all of the resources that already exist, we're sort of sharing that with these organizations within the coalition so that you can share it with the covered populations. One thing I'm going to share in the chat right now, this is a website that shows sort of percentages on out of all the eligible households, what % have actually signed up. So if you look at Maine, it's only 39.1%. So there's still definitely a big gap in people who are eligible and could be benefiting from this program and those who have actually signed up. And I think some of the barriers are things that we can address in this plan and through our work together. So that's just something to offer for people to look at on their own time. All right, so we are coming right up on time. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about next steps. So I'm going to follow up on this meeting with that spreadsheet I talked about, so you all can fill out any asset inventories that you don't see or any digital assets that you don't see in the current inventory. I'm also going to be sending out a doodle poll for our next meeting. So like Susan said, this is a very sped up timeline to get this plan put together. So I'm going to be sending out a meeting invite or potential meeting dates for the week of the 27th of February and the week of the 6th of March. So I'll follow up with that doodle poll either by the end of the day today or tomorrow. I'll also include the Affordable Connectivity Program information Susan just shared, as well as presentations and the recording from this meeting. So at our next meeting, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we are going to actually interview and talk with the covered populations in the grant and try to get some recommendations for our plan. So in addition to sending out the follow-up email today, once we have a date set for our next meeting, I'm going to send out some information about, what the agenda will look like and what you can expect from that meeting. Does anyone have any final thoughts, questions, comments before we end? Deborah.
Yes. Hi again. This is Deborah, Disability Rights Maine. Just to kind of, Clara and I were talking at the beginning about having captioning in these Zoom meetings. There's a thing called relay conference captioning. I use it as well as my job. Part of my job is to teach people about it. It's no cost relay conference captioning that can be included in these Zoom meetings. So moving forward, it will be available. And anybody who's interested in learning more about it can reach out to me or reach out to Clara, and I can show you exactly what it is. But the basic concept is it's captioning. So whoever you're working with, as well as people you may know, may be able to benefit from this no consumer cost service.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for adding that. Anyone else before we close? All right. Well, thank you all for being here and making the time. This is really important work, and I'm excited to have this diverse coalition of partners involved. And like I said, the coalition is going to continue to grow. There are more folks that we'll reach out to, but in that follow-up email, I'll also include a list of organizations, just so you know sort of who is involved in this work. And we want to make sure that we connect you with each other because there might be opportunities for shared resources even within the coalition. So on that note, I'm going to close and thank you all again. I hope you have a great rest of your Valentine's Day and a great rest of your week. So thank you all.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Bye.